Hey everyone, welcome back to Secure Your Benefits. I hope you're having a fantastic day so far. Today, we've got a really interesting topic to dive into. If you've been following the news, you may have heard a lot of buzz around the $5,000 stimulus checks that have been proposed by former President Donald Trump and his campaign team. This has generated quite a bit of excitement among some people who believe it could provide them with financial relief in these uncertain times. But there's also a fair amount of skepticism, with many wondering if this is just another political promise that may never come to fruition. So today, I want to break down exactly what's going on with these $5,000 checks, where this idea came from, and whether or not we should actually expect to see them in our bank accounts anytime soon. I'll also talk about the key details that you need to understand, because while it's an interesting concept, it's also important to manage our expectations. The idea of issuing $5,000 checks to American households comes from a proposal tied to a new initiative called the Department of Government Efficiency, Doge. Now, I know this might sound like a new government program, but the goal behind Doge is to cut waste, fraud, and inefficiencies in federal spending. The idea is that the government could save a lot of money by reducing unnecessary spending and streamlining how tax dollars are used. The ultimate goal is to save up to $2 trillion over several years. But here's where the proposal gets interesting. The suggestion is that 20% of these savings, once the money is saved, would be used to provide $5,000 stimulus checks to American households. This is essentially a way for the government to give back a portion of the money it saved by making government spending more efficient. So, if the government is able to save $2 trillion, that would translate to $5,000 per household. But if the savings end up being smaller, say $1 trillion, the amount of the stimulus checks would be cut in half, meaning households would receive only $2,500. As exciting as this sounds, it's important to keep in mind that this is not guaranteed. It's still just a proposal that has not been passed into law yet. So, before you get too excited and start dreaming of the $5,000 check hitting your account, it's important to manage your expectations. The proposal has received a lot of attention, especially after it was mentioned in fundraising emails sent out by Donald Trump's campaign. These emails have been asking supporters if they would be interested in receiving the $5,000 stimulus check, with messages like, "Would you accept a $5,000 Doge dividend check signed by Trump? And the swamp doesn't want you to have this money, it's yours anyway." While this has generated a lot of support among Trump's followers, we need to understand that none of this is set in stone. It's not like the checks will just appear in our bank accounts. For this proposal to actually become reality, it would need to go through a long and difficult process. Congress would need to pass a law approving the proposal, which involves debates, votes, and plenty of political negotiations. After that, it would need to be signed into law by the sitting president. Even if it does get passed, there's a long timeline involved here. The proposal suggests that the checks wouldn't be issued until after July 2026, once the Doge program has had time to finish its savings phase and calculate how much money was actually saved. One important thing to note about this proposal is that it's not necessarily for everyone. The $5,000 stimulus checks would be issued only to households that pay federal income taxes. So, if you are someone who doesn't pay federal income taxes, like a lower-income individual, or someone who relies on Social Security benefits, then you may not qualify for these checks. This is where the debate comes in. Some people argue that this money should be used to help those who need it most, such as people in lower income brackets or those who have been hit hardest by economic downturns. But on the other hand, others believe it's only fair to give this back to people who have contributed the most to the system, i.e., those who are net taxpayers. If this proposal were to move forward, it could create a political divide. While some Democrats and Republicans may support it as a way to help those who contribute to the system, others might argue that more should be done to help those in need, especially since there are many low-income Americans struggling with financial hardship. So why is this proposal even being considered? Well, the supporters of the Doge program argue that it's a way to show that the government can be more efficient with taxpayer money. The idea is that if the government can cut waste, fraud, and inefficiency, it will prove that it can do more with less, and by using the savings to give money back to the taxpayers, it shows that the government is working on their behalf. The other reason is that, by giving back to taxpayers, the government can help build public support for the Doge program. If people start seeing the benefits of the program directly, it might make it easier to sustain the program in the long run. Plus, it can help boost the image of the government as being proactive and working to improve the lives of ordinary Americans. However, there are also critics of this idea. Some believe that instead of handing out stimulus checks, any savings should be used to reduce the national debt, which is currently at a staggering $36 trillion. With the government running massive deficits year after year, some fiscal conservatives argue that paying down the debt should be the priority, not sending checks to people. So, what happens next? At this point, the $5,000 stimulus checks are still just a proposal. Congress has not passed any law related to this idea, and we don't know if or when that might happen. Even if it does get passed, it could take several years before any checks are issued. The idea is tied to the long-term goals of the Doge program, which isn't expected to finish until 2026. I know many of you may be hoping for immediate financial relief, but the reality is that we'll have to wait and see whether this proposal moves forward. It's a big if at this stage, and a lot of political hurdles would need to be overcome for it to become a reality. In the end, while the $5,000 stimulus checks sound like an exciting possibility, it's important to remember that we are still in the proposal phase. There's a long way to go before any checks are actually issued, and it may take several years, if not longer, for this idea to come to fruition. At Secure Your Benefits, we'll continue to keep you updated as more information becomes available. If you're as curious about this as we are, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more updates. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think about the $5,000 stimulus checks? Do you think it's a good idea, or should the government focus on reducing the national debt instead? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching. As always, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Secure Your Benefits for the latest updates on government programs, stimulus checks, and much more. I'll see you in the next video.